The battlefield was endless, a sea of smoke and fire stretching beyond the horizon. Samuel clutched his rifle, his heart pounding as he crouched in the trenches, the sound of distant gunfire echoing in his ears. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from exhaustion. Months had passed since he last saw his family, and every night, the weight of his promise bore down on him. "I'll come home," he had sworn to his wife and daughter before boarding the ship that took him across the world. But with each passing day, that promise felt more like a lie. That night, as he finally drifted into uneasy sleep, something strange happened. A soft glow filled the air, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of lilacs through the war-torn field. Then, out of the shimmering light, she appeared, Lyra, a fairy of dreams, dressed in a flowing gown of silver and blue, her iridescent wings catching the moonlight. "You are not alone, Samuel," she whispered, her voice a melody in the silence. Samuel blinked, unsure if he was dreaming or if he had finally lost his mind. Who are you?" "I am Lyra, a guardian of dreams. I felt your sorrow, your doubt," she said, kneeling beside him. "I have come to give you strength." Samuel hesitated. He had never believed in fairies, but there was something about her presence that soothed his soul. The weight on his chest lifted slightly, and for the first time in months, he felt warmth in the cold, empty night. "You promised to return home," Lyra continued, looking into his weary eyes. "Do you still believe you can?" Samuel turned his gaze toward the dark sky, his expression unreadable. "I want to believe," he admitted. "But every day, that promise feels further away." Lyra placed a gentle hand over his, her touch like the first breeze of spring. "Then let me help you remember why you must keep it." That night, for the first time since the war began, Samuel slept peacefully, his dreams filled with the laughter of his daughter and the embrace of his wife. But Lyra knew the truth. If she continued to guide him, if she poured her magic into keeping his spirit strong, there would be consequences. The laws of her kind were clear: interfering too much in a mortal's fate could sever her connection to the fairy realm forever. Yet, as she watched Samuel smile in his dreams, she knew she couldn't turn away. Night after night, Lyra returned, slipping into Samuel's dreams like a quiet prayer. She carried him away from the battlefield, into visions of his home, of his daughter's tiny hands reaching for him, of his wife's warm embrace. She whispered words of encouragement, reminding him of the life that waited beyond the war. And Samuel began to change. His fellow soldiers noticed it, the way his shoulders straightened, the way his eyes held a flicker of hope where before there had only been resignation. He fought not just to survive, but to return. But as his strength grew, Lyra's began to fade. Fairies were bound to the realm of dreams and wonder, and the more time Lyra spent in Samuel's world, the weaker her magic became. The glow of her wings dimmed, her once boundless energy dwindled. She ignored the signs at first, telling herself she could bear the cost. Samuel needed her, and that was all that mattered. Then one night, as she entered his dream, she felt something shatter inside her. The warm golden hues of the dream world flickered like a dying flame. Lyra clutched her chest as an invisible force pulled at her, dragging her away. "No, not yet." Samuel stood before her, confused. "Lyra, what's wrong?" Tears welled in her eyes. She had ignored the warnings for too long. The fairy queen had sent her final judgment. Lyra could no longer return to the realm of dreams. "I have to go," she whispered, her voice breaking. Samuel stepped forward, a sudden desperation in his gaze. "No, you promised you'd help me get home." Lyra smiled, though it was full of sorrow. "I never promised." "You did, and you will keep it." With the last of her strength, she placed her hands over his heart, pouring every ounce of her fading magic into him. A golden light surrounded Samuel, filling his soul with unwavering determination. "Live, Samuel, return home." And with that, Lyra vanished, leaving only the whisper of wings in the wind. The war ended months later. Soldiers returned home, greeted by their loved ones with cheers and tears. Samuel stood among them, his heart pounding as he stepped off the train. His daughter spotted him first, her little voice crying out, "Daddy." He barely had time to kneel before she threw herself into his arms, sobbing against his chest. His wife followed, holding him as if afraid he would disappear again. "You came back," she whispered. Samuel held them both close, his voice trembling. "I promised." That night, as he lay in his old bed, staring at the ceiling, he finally let himself grieve. Not for the war, not for the years lost, but for Lyra. She had given him everything, yet he never got the chance to thank her. As sleep took him, he half hoped she would appear one last time. And then, just before the dream took hold, a soft wind stirred the curtains, carrying with it the scent of lilacs. A faint voice whispered in the night, "Goodbye, Samuel." Tears slipped down his face, but he smiled. Lyra was gone, but she would never be forgotten.